We'll be starting the finals here very shortly. Here we go. And for those of you just joining us, welcome to the finals. We've had 2 days of long competition, and it's all boiled down to this here at the Star City Games Open Series in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Gavin Verhey. I'm joined here by Adrian Sullivan. We're about to watch the final match unfold. On your left is Jesse Hatfield. Jesse is playing a 75-card mirror, or 75-card identical deck list, rather, of Alex Hatfield, his brother, in the tournament. Both Hatfields came into the top 8 undefeated. They both made it to the semifinals undefeated. His brother, Alex Hatfield, finally fell to the man you see sitting right there, David Thomas. David is playing Dredge, which is a wretched matchup for the High Tide deck. They're a faster combo deck. They have disruption in Cabal therapy. But maybe if Jesse can be able to pull it out, it's not going to be easy if he does, but David Thomas starting off with a mulligan is good news for him. Then again, we've seen David in the feature match area several times now. I think he's mulliganed every single one, as Dredge tends to do, and hasn't impacted him one bit.
Okay, so as we've said, Dredge is the deck that can absolutely be doing the kinds of aggressive mulliganing that makes things very, very much easier on it for that mulligan. Jesse Hatfield, basically what he needs to be able to do, I'm going to bring my voice down a little bit because there are very few people left here. Jesse Hatfield basically is going to need to have one of two things happen. So long as David Thomas mulligans appropriately, which we can predict Jesse will believe David does, force of will for the first outlet is the way that he's going to hope to have the chance to win this one, and hopefully no second outlet for Jesse Hatfield to have to force a will.
So let's see what we have going on here. Is David keeping this hand? All right, and there's Lions Eye Diamond for David Thomas. Looks like another pretty quick start. And there's Force of Will, pitching High Tide for Jesse Hatfield. Jesse is like, no, we cannot let you have that Lions Eye Diamond. It's too good of an enabler.
Yeah. Now, that still leaves him with the ability to cast a Cabal Therapy on himself.
Yep, which he does, and he's going to discard that Stinkweed Imp.
There it is.
And other cards are Sphinx of Loth's Truths and a Golgari Thug.
To the races.
So not the fastest hand by David Thomas, but
right.
The thing is, he doesn't have another land, so he can't activate Deep Analysis, and just dredging once every turn might not be enough.
Yeah, he needs to hit something useful here.
Yep.
I mean, he's going to be just doing once a turn for the rest of this game. And, ooh, no Dredge there. Now he wants to top deck a Breakthrough.
Yeah,
and,
Breakthrough would do it.
Careful Study might be better.
Sure. Once again, this is the kind of hand that Jesse Hatfield was hoping David Thomas would get, one of the slower Dredge hands. And we saw him have a hand very similar to this in the Game 1 against Alex Hatfield, and David was still able to win that game. But we'll see how it ends up going for Jesse Hatfield here. So Jesse casts Brainstorm. Looks like his hand is Turnabout, Intuition, a land, double Turnabout. But he's going to shove one Turnabout on top of his library, drawing the fetch land.
Now, this is the exact kind of matchup where you would want to have practiced it to attempt to go for the turn 3 go off.
Yep.
It's not easy. It's not advisable.
Don't try this at home.
But
I actually definitely try this at home.
Yeah, definitely practice. You know, I have sat down and played these High Tide decks, not the current incarnation, previous incarnations, and your percent reduction in going off on turn 3 as compared to turn 4, it goes down by about, and this is against the Goldfish, it goes down by about 60 to 70%.
And there's Merchant Scroll from Jesse Hatfield. And what do you think you find here if you're Jesse Hatfield?
I don't remember. Did we see a High Tide in his hand before? Whatever piece of the combo he doesn't have yet. Intuition, going for the Time Spirals.
Yep. So
this is going to be at quickest a turn 4 attempt.
Turn 4 seems to be what Jesse's going for here. And David Thomas is going to need, like you said, Careful Study or Breakthrough here. And, yep, so just passes back, and we'll see what David Thomas draws. Looks at the top of his deck for an answer. And that's
not exciting.
Not what he needed. And is forced to pass the turn
this
back.
means that Jesse Hatfield knows that he has a lot of time. He can take a moment and when I say relax, I mean recognize that he has the opportunity now to maybe go for the turn 4 or even the turn 5 go off.
Yeah, I think once again you have to be. Unlike a lot of other decks, you can just wait and wait and wait. Against Dredge, you just don't have that luxury because they could Cabal Therapy you, mess up your hand. I think he's going to have to go for the turn 4 here. He's going to go turn 3, end step, Intuition, untap, try and kill David Thomas.
What do you see in his hand? Is that another Force of Will?
I'm not sure if it's a... I think it's a Force. I also see a High Tide. I see High Tide, Intuition, Force. Not quite sure on the cards on the
glare is
left.
just slightly getting it for me. And there, look at that. We've got a second land.
And the thing about that land is you can play... Oh, no,
There we
opposite
go.
stuff the
Slough
Coliseum.
Coliseum. Does he have the threshold? I think so.
Yeah.
There it is. More than enough.
I was going to say you could play the Thug and then flashback Cabal Therapy on Jesse Hatfield to get into his graveyard, but I guess we're just going for the Coliseum here.
That Coliseum is going to fill up that yard. I see a Lion's Eye Diamond in his hand.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this Lion's Eye Diamond is going to be pretty strong. But I think David knows that Jesse has it next turn, and he's got to find a way to make sure Jesse can't kill him. There's Lion's Eye Diamond. I don't see Deep Analysis anywhere.
I don't either. Oh, we had to discard one more card. Didn't quite get enough discarded.
Thought he only discarded 2, but I thought maybe he shoved another one under there.
Yeah, I thought there was the sticky drop down.
Yep.
Okay, so now with that, it's pretty likely that he recognizes that he has to go off. So it's going to be a sacrifice that land, Intuition for the final portion of the combo.
Yeah.
Does he have the second portion of the untap ability? I mean, he's got a High Tide.
And he's going to have Time Spiral here, so he'll be able to draw.
He needs to have an island in order to make sure that the High Tide plus Time Spiral is enough.
Right.
Now, note, with that Lion's Eye Diamond in play, let's pretend, for the sake of argument, that Jesse Hatfield does not go off. A full hand for David Thomas will mean that Lion's Eye Diamond will immediately be able to reset the graveyard for him from his hand if he has any dredgers.
Yeah, it's very important. Yeah, because with Time Spiral, David Thomas is forced to shuffle his hand and the graveyard back in, but the Lion's Eye Diamond will put it right back in the graveyard, meaning that he can quickly start dredging again on his turn. Plus, it can also give him any more lands he needs, finds him more stuff like Coliseum, so it's crucial that Jesse Hatfield is able to kill him when he goes off with Time Spiral.
Okay. Here we go. It's going to be the turn 4.
There's a
I see a Candelabra.
So the Candelabra, even if Jesse doesn't have a land, the Candelabra should be able to make lethal this turn. Or not lethal, but
it should be able to
enough
help it
mana
out.
to cast Time Spiral. That's what I mean. So you can go High Tide, Candelabra, yeah, and then you can go off with High Tide.
I see. Is that 2 turnabouts there? High Tide. The Tide is at 2 mana.
So it's at 2, and Jesse's playing. Gonna go under pretty low.
Tide is at 3. 1 mana floating.
And here we go.
Turnabout untaps the land. No mana floating.
Yeah, that's a really good sequence of plays for Jesse
Access
Hatfield.
to 9 mana here now.
Yep. And so we think we're going to see Candelabra come down.
Oh, definitely.
Yep, there's Candelabra.
2 mana floating.
And there's Merchant Scroll.
No mana floating.
And now it's probably another High Tide.
I would be expecting another High Tide here.
I mean, he could try and draw some cards or something, but
He's got the Time Spiral. He's got all the cards he needs. Oh, Meditate. Wow.
Yep, so you meditate, you draw a bunch of cards, so you can just add more to the storm count, get more mana acceleration going on, and that way, when you go off with Time Spiral, you just have more options to make sure you don't fizzle accidentally. Now, I could definitely see getting High Tide there.
I think he would do High Tide there. He's got the Time Spiral. He doesn't. He's going to be casting that Time Spiral almost certainly before he goes off. And that puts 3 mana floating in his pool after untapping those lands. Meditate, no mana floating.
Draws 4. Meditate, Blue Sun Zenith, Ponder, and Cunning Wish.
Has not yet laid a land for this 4th turn.
Yeah, still doesn't have one.
Ponder, 2 mana floating.
There's a Ponder for Jesse Hatfield. Finding that one reason to go for Meditate is if you find another land.
But you can get that off the Time Spiral.
Right, it just means that you get an extra mana when you cast Time Spiral.
But you spend the mana for the Meditate.
Right, of course.
So it pushes.
We'll see We'll see how it ends up for Jesse Hatfield. Found Candelabra of Tawnos.
Another Candelabra, 1 mana floating.
And let's see.
He's got 4 mana, 7 mana. Candelabra spends 3.
Untap all those.
4 mana floating.
Here's Cunning Wish.
Cunning Wish, 1 mana floating.
And what do you think we're going to see here with the Cunning Wish?
I mean, at this point, actually, I'm not sure how many spells he's cast. He might be far enough along that a Brain Freeze will get there. Could be also a turnabout to be able to untap those 2 Candelabras.
Could be. We'll see what he chooses to get. He's got a ton of options on that wish board. I mean, go for repeal even if you wanted to reset a Candelabra, draw a card. Go for a turnabout, untap those Candelabras, get a bunch of mana. Echoing Truth, rebuy both
Turnabout
Candelabras.
it is.
Yep, Turnabout seems good. And for those who don't know, Turnabout is a tricky little card. Most people use it to untap their lands when they're going off. Sometimes you fog by untapping their creatures, but you can also untap artifacts.
That's right.
So he's going to untap all of his Candelabras and make a ton of mana.
I think there's a conversation about how much mana is in his pool. It's 1. Now there's 4, makes 0, untaps the Candelabras.
Oh, man. So much mana available on just the Hatfield side of the board.
Here's 6 more mana from Hatfield.
Yep. He's figuring out when he should be playing his cards.
6 more mana. I think it's just going to be a Time Spiral here.
Untap.
Okay. He's got 3 mana left.
Untaps all his lands again. He's got Blue Sun Zenith in his hand. He might just feel like using that. Yep.
That's absolutely fine. That's a lot of mana. He should be able to draw enough of his deck to be able to, if he does somehow, by some crazy miracle of fate, not have an untap effect and then more card draw, he still has the mana back to be able to cast Time Spiral and have that be his insurance policy.
Right. It's possible Jesse's just trying to go off without having to need that Time Spiral. I don't know what David could possibly draw in his 7 cards that would make it matter, but if he doesn't have to use Time Spiral, then it means David doesn't get to draw 7 cards, which I don't think is relevant, but
well, I mean, part of the issue
a
is
challenge.
that if you have the Time Spiral as an insurance policy, you can start going off, and if it doesn't work out, just Time Spiral then.
Yep. It's kind of silly when your Time Spiral is actually your plan B.
And that's all she wrote.
Yep.
He's got the land, obviously, from all that. He's got another High Tide in there. Sorry, a Preordain, my bad. Brainstorm. There's access to so much mana right now.
Yeah.
Turnabouts are in his hand. I see at least 1 turnabout. That turnabout with those Candelabras means yet more mana.
And now it's just all fundamental, I think, for Jesse Hatfield.
Build stuff up, and finish you off.
And we'll see what he goes for here, but I think unless Jesse messes up, David Thomas is going to be down a game in a matchup that seemed really bad for him.
Yeah, there's another Candelabra.
Really bad for Jesse.
Untap it all.
Yep. Makes a ton of mana. Shows you why that card is worth $200.
Yeah, Cunning Wish. Brain Freeze might be at this point enough to finish it. I would expect so.
Yeah. Brain Freeze sounds about right. And you know Dredge definitely does not have any kind of Kozilek or Eldrazi effect in it.
Yeah.
So even though, I mean, he knows the deck list too, but he knows it is safe. Completely safe. And he Brain Freezes David Thomas, and that's going to be it. I don't know what the storm count is, but it is
I think it's
significant.
sufficient.
It isn't enough to hit an EDH deck, I think, at this point.
Scoop.
Or Commander. So, yeah, David Thomas loses the first game. Jesse Hatfield up a game here. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for the second game to take place, we're going to give away a full year.
A year is a long time.
A year is a long time. Like, who knows where we'll be in a year? Who knows where the Open Series will be in a year? But I know where you'll be in a year, and that's renewing your Star City Games premium account. And so, if you want to play, go to Twitter, get the hashtag SCG Premium set up. We're going to ask a question, and one person who answers the question correctly will win a full year of SCG Premium, StarCityGames.com Premium. And make sure to put the hashtag SCG Premium in your tweet. You can tweet at us, at SCG Live if you want, but the important thing is you have that hashtag SCG Premium. here's the question. We had 2 draft opens this weekend.
That's right, 2.
Who won the second draft open? We talked to him a little while ago. He told us about the deck he drafted. Who was it? Who won the second draft open? Tell us, and we would be more than happy to enter you in a contest for 12 months of SCG Premium. So get those tweets ready, and we'll find out very shortly who's going to win the lucky prize of 12 months of Premium. In the meantime, these players are going into their sideboards. Jesse Hatfield not with a ton of options. Jesse Hatfield not with a ton of options here, but David Thomas maybe with some sideboard choices. We talked about Leyline of Sanctity earlier. I don't think Leyline's actually that good in this matchup. I feel like if Jesse's able to go off, he will pretty much always be able to have the time to Cunning Wish for a way to bounce the Leyline. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the Leyline of Sanctity is an answer, but one of the things with these very linear decks, anytime you put a card like that into the deck, they stop behaving like themselves by a little fraction of an inch. Every fraction of an inch matters.
Yeah, I think all we're going to see here out of David Thomas is that one Cabal Therapy out of the sideboard.
Yeah.
You could bring in the Needles if you wanted to shut off Candelabra, but I don't think it matters. I think if Jesse's in a position where he can go off, Needle is just a wasted card a lot of the time for Dredge.
Yeah, and I think what you're going to see on the other side of the board is Jesse Hatfield is likely going to take any card that he might actually want to use that he won't have the time to Cunning Wish for, and he's going to put it into his main deck. So an example of this, what card does he probably not have time to tutor for? He probably does not have time to Cunning Wish for Intuition. I'm going to be willing to bet that Intuition is going to come into his main deck. Maybe, it's a possibility again, because every card that he brings in is another card that he has to take out to make his deck a little bit less meaty. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mind Over Matter came out of his deck. That's the first thing I would say that would come out.
Yeah,
Meditate, very, very good card, probably wants to stay in there. Ponder, Brainstorm, Preordain. There really isn't very much room to wiggle with here. Merchant Scroll might be one of the cards you end up kind of cutting down a little bit of, because it does set yourself up for a Cabal Therapy to be able to, without not having to do any work, know what you have in your hand.
Yeah, it's true. It does. It actually play with Cabal Therapy.
And I'm not saying take out the Merchant Scrolls. I'm saying maybe shave a Merchant Scroll.
It's on the flip side, like, it is important you have them, but it can be a liability against Cabal Therapy. What do you think about this? Is kind of crazy. But what do you think about bringing in your one Brain Freeze? So if the Dredge is getting down low, there could be a turn where you're like, well, I can't kill you, but I can go High Tide, Candelabra, High Tide, Ponder, mill you for 15 cards and deck you.
I like that. I think that's a really good idea.
So,
actually, come to think of it, though, I think these Cunning Wishes might simply be just way too slow. Maybe all of the Cunning Wishes and the Mind Over Matter all might get popped out of there, and you get 4 cards that you get to come in. And the four cards I would probably bring in with that would be probably 1 Meditate, because it lets you begin to go off. Probably 1 Turnabout, because it's a card that lets you begin to go off. Probably your Brain Freeze, because it's a card that helps you go off. And then that Echoing Truth.
Yeah. I was actually thinking maybe you take out 2 Cunning Wishes. I feel like maybe there's a point where you want a Merchant Scroll for Cunning Wish.
Yeah, you could Merchant Scroll for Cunning Wish. That would make sense.
But taking out 2 seems reasonable. And then you can use that in case of emergencies, but you can set up your deck.
Yeah, how about that even? Like 1 Merchant Scroll goes out of the deck, maybe 2 Cunning Wishes go out of the deck, maybe 1 Mind Over Matter. That seems like a reasonable sideboard plan.
I don't know how much Jesse wants to bring in here. Obviously, he doesn't want to dilute his deck for being too combo-oriented.
Yeah, well, the thing about that, right, was these cards that you're bringing in, if you bring in a Turnabout, what you're doing is you're maintaining your combo-ness. If you bring in a Meditate, you're maintaining your combo-ness. If you bring in an Intuition, for example, you're maintaining your combo-ness. So it actually doesn't really get much in the way of his cards. It just speeds him up by making him not be so Cunning Wish heavy.
Yep, and I think that speed is important, especially on the draw here. Like, Jesse is on the draw, which means that David is going to be able to come out a little faster than Jesse, and David is the faster combo deck to start with, so that extra turn that David gets could make a big difference. So Jesse knows he's not going to have time to do Cunning Wishes. And
despite getting that game 1 edge, I still think that David Thomas still has the edge between games 2 and 3.
I think David just got a really poor draw there. Kept kind of a hand that didn't pan out that well for him, especially with the force from Jesse, and I don't expect to see that happen again. So looks like David's finally keeping a 7. Haven't seen that happen from him so far, really. And now Jesse's considering his.
Now,
and he keeps.
Let's pretend that David Thomas has a 70% game win percentage on games 2 and 3, which I think might be conservative. That would still be a coin flip for him to win this match. If he gets up to, say, about a 75%, we're up to about almost 60% chance for him to win the match. But I think this is closer to 80%, which puts David Thomas a 2-to-1 favorite on this.
And there's Sheffield Coliseum into careful study, discarding deep analysis and dread return, plus Lion's Eye Diamond from David Thomas there. And of course, the thing about Magic is we can talk about these statistics, but at the end of the day, stats don't mean anything when it comes down to the cards being played.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, it comes down to what you draw. You could have a 95% matchup and still find a way to lose, or your opponent could find a way to win, conversely. So, Ponder from Jesse Hatfield. He leaves the cards there. His hand looks stocked. It has tons of blue cards. I see a High Tide. I see an Intuition. He has some lands, but it's kind of a risky hand. So Merchant Scroll gets out. He sees a hand of Island, Meditate, Cunning Wish, Ponder, High Tide. Is that a Time Spiral all the way to the left there?
That is a Time Spiral.
Yep.
Meditate, Cunning Wish, Time Spiral, yeah. Ponder, High Tide.
So Jesse has a pretty stacked hand, but the question is it going to be fast enough?
Yeah, you know, singular little bits of discard have never been particularly effective at fighting against High Tide. However, what is effective is being really fast yourself and backing up with some discard. That careful study is going to discard. Waiting to see which 2 cards he got from that careful study. He's thinking about it, so it's obviously not a really abundantly obvious pair.
Alright, I think I definitely saw Stinkweed Imp and Cabal Therapy there.
Is that Stinkweed Imp, Putrid Imp?
Looks like Putrid Imp is there too.
Putrid Imp, Cabal Therapy to the yard.
Okay, I think I saw Putrid Imp, not Stinkweed Imp.
Okay,
Yeah.
There's another Putrid Imp in hand.
Looks like a land too.
Yeah.
Putrid Imp plus land. So Jesse going to draw a card here. It draws another High Tide, and you can play out an island, cast another Ponder.
And he's pondering right now, in fact.
The other kind of pondering.
Yes, what am I going to do?
Let's see what happens. Goes for Ponder.
His cards reflect his mental state.
Which if, yeah, wow. Mental state, which has been a long day, so if Edgar Allan Poe is to be believed, it might be weak and weary. But we'll see what Jesse Hatfield does here. So he chooses to shuffle away. He knew one of the cards on top of his library. He shuffles away that one card, shuffles away the other 2 cards that he just saw, trying to get a new card. Let's see what we can get. And Jesse's trying to craft his hand. David doesn't have a ton going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is that with that Cabal Therapy in the yard, he can lay that Putrid Imp and then immediately, you know, use it to hit his opponent's hand, or even he might have enough cards in hand after he draws that Stinkweed Imp, where he can lay the Putrid Imp and then use the Putrid Imp to discard enough for that Sheffield Coliseum to be activatable.
Right, and that Coliseum is going to do a lot of powerful things, but there's no dredge cards again.
No, he's got. Doesn't he have one? Oh no, you're right. He hasn't seen it yet.
Man, David Thomas has had a tough time for a dredge deck. He certainly has not done a very good job of drawing dredge cards.
I mean, there's another Coliseum.
And there's we've seen both in the semifinals and finals, and even earlier in the Swiss that he had trouble getting dredge cards active sometimes. And so David is going to take one. He's going to activate the Coliseum. And David has enough cards in his graveyard to do that, right?
I believe so.
Okay. Sounds about right. Just wasn't sure if it was only 6. But Jesse doesn't check this time. He checked last game, so.
I think I see a Grave Troll.
Yep, that's a Grave Troll. So it looks like Narcomoeba, Breakthrough, Grave Troll. When your dredge opponent discards Breakthrough, you should be scared. Probably means they have another in their hand or something equally dangerous. So,
Now, would you Cabal Therapy that Putrid Imp right now? You've got one in the yard.
I think I would probably Cabal Therapy Putrid Imp, yeah. I feel like you just have to stop Jesse from killing you either this turn or the next turn. So yep, he flashes back Cabal Therapy. Going to target Jesse Hatfield, and he's probably going to name High Tide. And Jesse has 2 High Tides, and he loses both of them, and that's a gigantic blow. He had the combo pretty much set up in his hand. He could have even gone off next turn if he drew a land, but he didn't. And because Cabal Therapy came down, now those High Tides are gone.
Now, with that Cephalid Coliseum, David Thomas can potentially threaten a particularly large Golgari, or a dredge, if the Golgari Grave Troll shows us any more.
Yeah.
Now, he can put that Golgari Grave Troll that he'll draw during his draw step back in the yard with that Lion's Eye Diamond. And look at this, Jesse Hatfield once again not finding the mana he needs early. And the dredge from this Golgari Grave Troll revealing a Narcomoeba, bridge from below. Oh, there's a Dread returns, and then Imp.
And
Stinky Imp.
And that Narcomoeba comes into play.
Now, here's a land. There's going to be a Lion's Eye Diamond he can crack to be able to discard that Golgari Grave Troll back to the yard and activate the Cephalid Coliseum should he so choose. There it goes. 3 mana, blue, blue, blue. One of the blue used up, Cephalid Coliseum.
And he's going to Coliseum away. And going to draw, in quotation marks, a Golgari Grave Troll.
Draw.
And let's see, LED.
Another Dredge.
And there's a Dredge, or there's Golgari Thug.
Then there's a Therapy.
Yeah, and that Therapy is going to annihilate
Hybrid.
Jesse's hand even further. Let's see. Yep, Dredges, Stinkweed Imp. Hits 5 more. Hits another Cabal Therapy, plus 2 Bridge from Belows. Dredges a third card, a Stinkweed Imp this time. So we did bring in Pithy Needle. We see one there. There's another Narcomoeba, a third Bridge from Below, and now I think David can feel pretty confident flashbacking those Cabal Therapies and picking up 3 zombie tokens for each one.
I mean, if he did bring in a Pithing Needle, maybe he just brought in like a very small amount, took
1
out
or
perhaps
2.
an Angel of Despair, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, Angel not that exciting. You bring 1 or 2 needles, I think, would probably be safe.
Yeah.
So Jesse's going to force. And so the deep analysis does not resolve, but David almost assuredly going to Cabal Therapy Jesse this turn and get a ton of zombies.
But first, time to bash.
Yep, Narcomoeba's got to get in there. Little One Flyer. You guys would be surprised about how many games by Dredge are won with a combination of Stinkweed Imps, Narcomoebas, Golgari Thugs, Putrid Imps. It's pretty unreasonable how many games are won simply on the back of crafty little 1/1 flyers dealing damage. So, and let's see. Yep, there's a bunch of zombie tokens. And he's gonna take a card out of Jesse's hand. He sees all that's left is High Tide.
Oh, jeez.
Or Time Spiral, rather.
Spiral.
Yeah. The other namesake of the deck. And he's gonna
And
strip that Time
Therapy,
Spiral away.
Goodbye.
And
I don't know that there's anything
I
that
don't
can
think
be done.
Jesse could even draw any single possible combination of cards to win. He's going to be taking 12 next turn.
I can see one way that he can win. If he draws an Echoing Truth and David Thomas goes all in on zombies.
And that might work out for him. However, David Thomas not doing that. Here comes Golgari
Grave Troll.
And that should be good enough.
That Grave Troll, big.
On 11-11, we hear from the sidelines. So I think it is exactly 1 short. Or 2 short. Nope.
Oh, look at
there's
that Icarid.
And it just is like, yeah, you remember to bring
20
Icarid
damage.
back. And there you go. That's Dredge for you. And once again, that's a weak draw with Dredge. That's he did not have a Dredger. He had to kind of dig for one, and he found it eventually, and then was able to go off. Jesse's deck was about 1-2 turns too slow. Jesse had David if that Cabal Therapy didn't come down, but David had the Therapy, and once again, we feel the disruption is the key part of this matchup. So, going into Game 3, Jesse on the play. Looks like David might be switching up his sideboarding a little bit. What do you think would change here?
You know, he might be thinking to himself, maybe these pithing needles are not necessary. He showed the pithing needle to Jesse. Or maybe he could be doing the thing where, okay, I showed Jesse the pithing needle, right? And now I'm going to pretend I'm taking it out. Now, David is going to be on the draw here, so pithing needle's utility does go down perhaps a little bit on the draw. Getting rid of them is not bad.
I almost wonder if David is like, now I want more needles, because this is kind of a weird train of thought, but in that game he saw how Jesse was going to be able to win if he had one more turn to play because of Candelabra accelerating him up, and maybe he feels Candelabra is a key part of the mashup. It's unclear, but let's see what happens. Well, if we see an early needle, I think I'll have an inkling of what might have happened. At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if David was boarding them out. He has to be able to careful study and break through, and he can't afford to be spending 1 mana on things that don't necessarily have an impact.
Yeah. Now, for those of you who at home who are trying to figure out what to do next week or the weeks thereafter in Legacy, if you haven't been paying attention and starting to respect Dredge, it's time to start respecting Dredge.
You need some graveyard hate, that is for sure. You're going to need Nihil Spellbomb, Relic of Progenitus, Tormod's Crypt, Leyline of the Void, whatever you want to use. But we've seen this guy just run through the tournament. The 2 Dredge players that made top 8, they both had to play each other. If they didn't have to play each other, if they were in opposite brackets, I wouldn't be surprised to see them playing in the finals.
Yeah, I basically feel like if they didn't play each other in the opening, that they would have played each other at some point, because I don't think that there's going to be much stopping them besides each other. Now, of course, that's just on the averages. Jesse Hatfield, the underdog here, he's going to be the one on the play in Game 3, and you can always buck the averages.
And no one puts a Hatfield in a corner, so we'll see what happens. Alex already been slayed. Jesse's brother, Alex, also made top 8 of this tournament. He was slayed by David Thomas right there in the last round. It was his first loss of the day. Jesse trying to pick up revenge. He managed to pick up a game on David that's better than his brother was able to do. We'll see if it comes out to end up in Jesse's favor. I think he has to get a little lucky, play tight, but it could happen. The other thing to keep in mind is that Alex already won an open with the High Tide deck. If Jesse was able to win this, that'd be 2 Hatfields. 2 Hatfields, 2 High Tide successes. That's just crazy. And for those of you just joining us, I'm Gavin Verhey. I'm here with Adrian Sullivan, and this is it. This is the final game. 2 long days of Magic, 2 draft opens, a standard open, a legacy open, all about to come to a close here. Standards in the books, the draft opens in the books. All that's left to be resolved is this one final game between Jesse Hatfield and David Thomas. Jesse rocking High Tide here in Atlanta at the Star City Games Open. Trusty deck. Brother Alex had made a big finish with it. Jesse rocking it too. Alex once again lost in the semifinals to David Thomas, who's playing Dredge. Dredge is ahead in this matchup. It's got disruptions a little bit faster. Jesse managed to steal a game on him, though. We'll see if he's managed to steal a second.
Now, we've brought you nearly 30 hours of Magic this weekend, and it's all soon to be wrapped up here in this final matchup, Game 3, David Thomas versus Jesse Hatfield.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think of all the games that's been played this weekend, of all the people talking about Magic, of all the discussion that's occurred. Some great players that come in and talk to us. We've got to hear from Marsh Uzuri, we got to hear from Sol Malka, we got to hear from Shaheen Sarani, we got to hear from all kinds. Let's see, Ali Antrazi, I think, was in the booth at one point.
Yeah.
We've got to hear from numerous players doing well. Lewis Laskin a couple times. And of course, you know, we've had some judge answers by Riki Ayashi, some great tournament information from Jared Silva. We've had all kinds of players step in and tell us what's going on, and it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have such a great turnout for these events.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things you have to ask yourself right now, Jesse Hatfield, putting the cards back, getting a new hand, much harder on High Tide than it is on Dredge to mulligan. We see mulligans on both sides here. The question you have to ask yourself, there have been small, minor changes that the Hatfields have made to the High Tide deck in the opens that they've played them in. Now, Alex has made 3. This is his 3rd open that he's made the top 8 in, I believe.
Let's see. He made top 8 in the Edison, where he won. He made top 8 in this one. And it sounds about right. Was he playing a High Tide in all of them?
It was Edison, It was, I guess it's just Edison in here. So this is his second one. My bad.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
he did not make much of a change between his Edison list and this list. And you have to ask yourself, if David Thomas wins, what are Jesse and Alex going to do when they go home about this matchup?
Well, I think you can do a couple things. First of all, there might be a cunning wishable target deal with Graveyard Hate, and I'm not sure on this. Nothing comes to my mind immediately, but I'm sure in the history of Magic, there's probably an instant.
Yeah, there definitely is.
But
I
no.
believe Blue 1 Instant might be one of them. I just got to remember the name of the card.
Blue 1 instant hit a graveyard? That sounds like a very weird card. I don't think I've ever heard of that card. It's actually, there might not be one in blue. Blue is a tricky color. It doesn't get Graveyard Hate very often.
Oh, I remember what I'm thinking of. The Blue 1 Instant counter a spell. Your opponent can...
Grip of Inertia.
Grip of Amnesia.
Yeah.
Grip of Amnesia is the card I was thinking of.
Counterspell, unless they remove their graveyard. I don't think David is going to remove his graveyard anytime soon.
And it is, in that factor, a little bit slow. 2 mana.
Yeah. Even 2 mana counterspell, not really what you want.
Yeah, that's not going to do it.
So maybe there's nothing there. So you might just have to go to the sideboard and bring in,
Tormod's Crypt
Tormod's
is always
Crypt.
classic.
Relic of Progenitus gives you a card, which is reasonable. It does interesting.
I don't like
with your.
I don't
time
like
spiral.
Relic in this matchup.
Yeah, it messes
I
with
think
your time spiral.
I think you can't go that direction.
Yeah, I think Tormod's Crypt is probably where you have to be.
Yeah, Tormod's Crypt is one, and Phyrexian Furnace, or the other not quite Relic of Progenitus is the other option.
Scrabbling Claw.
Scrabbling Claw.
I think you want to make sure you hit their whole graveyard though, and not just individual cards.
Well, you can hit their whole graveyard by sacrificing it.
Sure. But no, Scrabbling Claw just has one card.
If you sacrifice it, it hits a whole graveyard. Oh no, it's just one card.
Yeah,
You're right.
just
You're
one
right. You're right.
card.
My bad.
Yeah. I knew there was a reason why Relic of Progenitus was just a million times better.
Relic of Progenitus is really, really good. Yeah, it has to be.
I think Tormod's Crypt is where you start.
It has to be Tormod's Crypt.
I think Tormod's Crypt is where you start. After that, you have other options, but so the issue is someone on Twitter recommended Ravenous Trap, and I thought of that. The problem is you actually don't want Ravenous Trap because of Cabal Therapy. It can just be stripped out of your hand really easily. So let's see, Dukan Sakar, Tom Reeve, Star City Games, Talent Search player. You can kind of wish for Ravenous Trap.
That's a very good point. One Ravenous Trap on the sideboard would be a wishable target.
It is a wishable target, but once again, even then, if you wish for it, I'm concerned that it could just be Cabal Therapy away, because you might have to wish for it at a point where you're not going to be able to cast it that turn. Granted, sometimes you're going to go...
That's absolutely fair.
Yeah. Well, maybe not. You can go end-step Cunning Wish for Ravenous Trap, but I don't think that'll happen very often. I think most of the time you'll be Cunning Wishing in response to them, a trigger of Narcomoeba or something like that. So it's probably fine. You can probably sideboard Ravenous Trap.
There are a couple of interesting options you can try to work with. Leyline of Singularity takes care of the possibilities of double Narcomoebas coming into play during a single dredge, or during a single activation of numerous dredges. Leyline of Singularity also, I believe, I'm not 100% sure of this, but I believe it will also take care of all of the zombie tokens.
It will, but it also shuts off all your Candelabras, which is a big issue.
Well, all but the first Candelabra. You can put down your first Candelabra.
Right, I mean, you can play one
second.
Candelabra, you can't use a second.
I'm okay with that.
I don't know about Leyline of Singularity. I like Ravenous Trap in the sideboard. That sounds about right to me. Anyway, back to the game. We have Island and a Ponder. It's funny, I was thinking of Ravenous Trap, and I was thinking of Cunning Wish, but I just wasn't thinking about using them together. So there's Ponder by Jesse Hatfield.
Another bit of advice offered by Ronnie Serio is Mnemonic Nexus, the blue 3 instant. All players shuffle their graveyards into their library, but that is 4 mana.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Ravenous Trap is just the right thing to have.
Careful study, David Thomas. Draw. I think I saw him draw Dread Returns there.
Yep, Dread Return drawn by David Thomas. You discard Stinkweed Imp, you discard Deep Analysis. And looks like David is gripping Cabal Therapy, and finally has an early Dredger, which is something that David has been lacking in a lot of these games. So Jesse plays an island and passes back. Dredges, pretty good dredge, double bridge, Narcomoeba, Stinkweed Imp, so 4 active cards on that dredge. And Narcomoeba's in play. And if David, in fact, has Cabal Therapy, I think you just play it and flash it back.
I think you want to attack that hand as aggressively as you can.
Right, and then you get a bunch of zombies too, which is pretty well. Oh, and there's Cephalid Coliseum.
Wow, there's the beginning of it. Let's see if I have to worry about what your hand looks like. Force of Will might be a card you use on this first Cabal Therapy, just so that the second Cabal Therapy might whiff.
Huh. This is a tough position for Jesse Hatfield. Let's see. Jesse thinking, can I force this? Can I not force it? And he does. Oh no, he just goes for Brainstorm. So he's going to hide some cards, and that seems much better to me because you don't go down on cards that way, and you can keep the cards that you want. The question is, what do you put back on top? What are the most crucial things? If he has got a high tide, I think that has to go back on top.
Yeah.
After that,
you know, doing a little bit of brainstorming, another real possibility that could be happening is you could just go Propaganda.
Sure.
Propaganda solves a lot of the ways in which the opposing deck can kill you. Suddenly they're going to have to, if you have a Propaganda on the table, they're going to have to either slow kill you, which gives you plenty of time, or they're going to have an Angel of Despair in order to take care of business.
Right. I mean, kind of subword like Chain of Vapor and stuff, but it allows slow them down slightly too.
Exactly.
So Jesse reveals his hand. It's Force of Will, Meditate, Turnabout, Time Spiral, Candelabra of Tanos. Unclear what card. What did he name?
Merchant Scroll.
Merchant Scroll is what David Thomas named, and there are no Merchant Scrolls available for Jesse Hatfield to discard. So Cabal Therapy goes into David Thomas's graveyard, where it's ripe to be flashed back using that Narcomoeba, getting some zombie tokens. And yep, he flashes it back, gonna get some zombies. And let's see what he names.
This time, it looks like it's going to Jesse waiting to see what David Thomas names here.
Let's see. So, yep, he reveals, and goodbye, Candelabra of Tanos.
Yep.
That's the card that can really speed up the blue combo deck, and without it, maybe Jesse's not going to be able to combo out. We'll see what happens. He's still missing quite a few important things.
Draw.
Let's see, so he's got the
Third land.
And he put 2 cards back with the Brainstorm, so he knows what's on top. His hand looks like double Force of Will, Meditate. And let's see, so Dredge here gets another bridge from below, so that's 3 bridges for David Thomas. A lot of potential for zombies here. And gonna attack with those zombies for 4, dropping Jesse to 16 life. And I guess not yet, we're gonna stuff the Coliseum first. Bring back Golgari Grave Troll. And there's 2
double therapy. Ouch.
Yeah, that is really bad for Jesse Hatfield.
Oh, God. Look at that.
Things were looking okay until double therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to tear apart his hand and give a bunch of zombie tokens.
And a stinky right there as well.
Narcomoeba is all David Thomas needs to really set this game up. Alright, so he didn't find another Narcomoeba, but still, that double therapy is going to do quite a bit of damage to Jesse Hatfield's hand. Let's see.
Look at that, he's got a land in hand still.
Yep. This card's 3. And there's Underground Sea.
Any blue card draw in that hand yet, or is it just dredgers?
Looks like, yep, serving for 4. So he's got some dredge action going on. David really wants to hit here, I think, is Narcomoeba, but he might just have to blow out those Cabal Therapies right now, just so he can strip Jesse of all those cards. I mean, if he flashes those back, Jesse's going to have no cards in his hand, and David Thomas is going to have plenty of time to win this game.
Absolutely. Let's just check, says Jesse. What do you have in here? What's gone away? How many breakthroughs do you have? How many careful studies do you have?
Right, so he's being careful, playing the game where he figures out what David could have. Unfortunately for Jesse, he's running out of options and fast. And Jesse looking through David's graveyard, playing very, very diligently. Jesse and Alex, you can tell that they are from the same school of Magic. They play very carefully, make sure not to make any mistakes. And they want to know every bit of information they can. So, okay, so Jesse's like, I think my only out is this, so he casts Meditate in response.
Wow.
So he's going to skip his next turn.
That is so aggressive. This is exciting to see what happens as a result. He does not look happy.
Loses his forces. And Jesse's hand looks to be Time Spiral, Turnabout, Meditate, Echoing Truth, Brainstorm. So, a decent hand, but David's going to be able to take another turn, and who knows what kind of shenanigans are going to be afoot here. Plus, I think he still has another Cabal Therapy in his graveyard that will really be able to continue to wreak havoc on Jesse's hand here. And there's an Narcomoeba that he's looking for. One Narcomoeba, flips 2 Grave Trolls, another Cabal Therapy. Wow, what a beating for Jesse Hatfield. David is hitting what he needs on these dredges. Finally, after some poor dredges the past couple games, it's paid off. As his deck karmically gives him back what he's looking for. So Flash the Back Deep Analysis. Going to do a lot more dredging here. And this might be the last turn for Jesse Hatfield. He knows that David knows that there's no forces in Jesse's hand. He stripped them with Cabal Therapy. And now David is free to do whatever he wants.
Jesse shuffling his hand up, just waiting to see how it all lays out.
Yeah. He managed to take a game, but looks like David is probably going to be able to take both. Or 2 out of 3. Flips a bridge, flips another Narcomoeba. There's your Dread Return in there. Let's see what happens. So I think you flash back the Dread Return as long as you have a target in your graveyard. I'm not sure, has he milled like a Flamekin Zealot or anything of that sort?
I don't remember seeing a Flamekin Zealot, but I mean that's a pretty thick graveyard. It could well be in there.
Yeah. I don't think he's got it either. But that's what he's checking right now.
Looking, he's got a Cabal Therapy of note.
Yeah, pulls out the Therapy. Going to put that to good use. Of course, he could just sacrifice his Narcomoeba to the Therapy, get a bunch of zombie tokens.
There it is.
Yep. So he's going to get 3 zombies, I think, or is that at 4 now?
I think it's 3 zombies. He counts. Triggered ability puts into play. 1, 2, 3, 4.
The full 4 zombies. So he has all 4 bridges right now.
What you got? Oh, I remember those cards.
Yep, and down goes Brainstorm.
Yeah, look at that Echoing Truth hanging out while he's tapped out.
And now that's 11 points of power on David Thomas' side of the board. And he can actually flashback Dread Return, sacrificing Narcomoeba and 2 zombies, and end up 2 zombies, down 1 Narcomoeba. Oh, nope, he's just going to opt to take Cabal Therapy, continuing to strip Jesse's hand. Gets
Echoing Truth looking more and more promising. There it goes.
Yeah, you make sure no, that Echoing Truth is not happening. And Jesse's going to attack for 2 with a zombie token.
Okay, so.
And David has lethal next turn.
Now, what is that hand that Jesse Hatfield is holding? I see Time Spiraled. Was there a Turnabout? So if there's a High Tide on top, that would be it. Not it. That would be him being able to try to go off.
And there's a High Tide on top.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness gracious me.
Whoa. Now, remember back to Edison, we saw Alex Hatfield rip a Time Spiral off the top to manage to turn the game around and win. Jesse Hatfield just drew a High Tide, which is the card he needed.
You know, at this point, so much has happened. I don't remember. Did he set up that High Tide? Was it there?
I don't believe... No, he cast Meditate.
That's right, he cast Meditate.
Yeah.
He cast Meditate and didn't die.
Right, cast Meditate and didn't die against the Dredge. That is a feat. That's worth... If this were an Xbox game, he would unlock an achievement right now. That is an achievement right there. Not dying against Dredge when you cast Meditate. So, we'll see if Jesse's able to pull it out. He's got High Tide. He's got Time Spiral, I think. Yeah, there it is. There's High Tide.
Tide's at 2.
Now all his islands tap for 2 mana. And for
6 mana.
Yep.
2 mana floating.
Wow. Wow.
Meditate. leaving 1 mana floating.
Ponder, High Tide. There's another High Tide.
No mana floating. Tide's at 3.
Now he has access to 9 mana.
3 mana. Another Meditate.
Draws 4 cards. Finds a Candelabra and a Turnabout. So we'll make a bunch of mana.
3 mana.
There's Ponder.
2 mana remaining. Is that going to be a shuffle? Nope, he likes it. What is it?
13 life, apparently.
13 life right in the way.
And
Candelabra, 1 mana floating.
Candelabra down.
Taps his
Untap
4
all
mana,
lands.
0 mana floating, and he gets to untap all 4 lands. He's got access to 12 mana now.
Wow, amazing. I thought for sure David had picked his part hand enough, but that Meditate from Jesse was a play I don't think a lot of players would have made.
Oh, definitely.
Now Turnabout, untapping everything.
It's 12 mana. He's adding 8 total from that move he just made. 8 mana in pool. The Tide is at 3. Not very much left there for that deck.
There's
Cunning Wish.
Yeah.
5 mana remain.
And he concedes. With his Brain Freeze. That is unbelievable. Congratulations to Jesse Hatfield. Winner of the turn. We drew the High Tide he needed on the last turn to go off in a reminiscent style to the Time Spiral that Alex Hatfield drew back in Edison.
That was really, really exciting.